This morning, we are continuing to monitor the arrest of two Americans in New York for allegedly running an unauthorized Chinese police outpost in lower Manhattan. The two men were charged with working with the Chinese government in an effort to intimidate Chinese dissidents in the United States. This comes as the Department of Justice vows to charge 44 other individuals for harassing citizens in the U.S. who expressed anti-government views of China. During a press conference on Monday, the Department of Justice also confirmed that there were more than 100 Chinese police operations around the world. Joining me to talk more about this morning, Tracy Walder, former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, I guess if there are more than 100 around the world, I'm curious how many more might be in the U.S., similar to the one that they uncovered in Manhattan.
Well, I think that's an excellent question, Marni. I can say with 99.9% certainty that there has to be more here in the U.S. I was working Chinese counterintelligence as an FBI agent in, the early 2000s, and things like this were going on. And so I suspect that there are far more here in the United States.
How difficult is it to find them?
It's really difficult because the behavior that they are engaging in actually has a name. It's called transnational repression. And we don't really talk about it a lot, but Iran has been doing it and China has been doing it. And it becomes very difficult because the people that they are trying to repress don't necessarily want to turn around and then turn that police station in. So it can become very difficult, and that's the problem. But it's about getting human intelligence to get information in terms of where these are located. And New York really was successful in doing that.
Right, and we're looking at the building where they were operating, nondescript, just kind of a typical New York building. So essentially, they're hiding in plain sight. Are we thinking they're in lots of big cities? Could they be in smaller communities across the country? Do we know?
Based on what I know about Chinese counterintelligence, my gut says that they are probably based out of the larger cities because that tends to be where a lot of folks who are trying to escape China and escape the Chinese government, that is where they tend to go. So I suspect this is a phenomenon that we're seeing in the larger cities. However, I could be wrong.
So what type of information might they be gathering in addition to intimidating dissidents?
So obviously, yes, they are intimidating dissidents. But I think the other thing that they are probably trying to do, and it looks like they are doing, is they arrested other individuals for doing so, is troll farming. That seems to be one of the largest things that they're doing. And that is sort of a special section of their Ministry of Public Security. And that is Section 912. And that is their job. They are sort of these cyber army, if you will, that goes out and virtually intimidates folks that are here that are speaking out against the Chinese government. And so I think they are getting that information, that dissenting information. But I also think, too, they are trying to commit economic espionage here in the United States. That's one of their biggest things that they are trying to do. And it would not surprise me if they were using some of these police stations to do so.
Right. And to your point with some of the internet concerns, one of these cases mentioned by the DOJ is Chinese operatives allegedly spying on Zoom calls, which during the pandemic everybody was doing. What should Americans know when it comes to that type of internet surveillance and the risks?
I think this is probably going to be disconcerting to some people, but in my opinion, if it's out there online and you're doing something online, the reality is that anyone can watch and see what you're doing. Everything is, for the most part, hackable. And other countries, quite frankly, just do a far better job than us in terms of hacking these types of internet sites, such as Zoom. And so I think we just need to really be careful in terms of what we're talking about online, how we are securing that information online, and really how prolific we are in terms of giving people passwords and those kinds of things.
So why is the U.S. behind on this, as you're alluding to? Why don't we have better measures in place to fight it, combat it, track it, stop it?
Thank you for making that point. That's something that I have personally always felt when I was tracking Chinese spies here in the United States. A lot of times I felt like I was sort of banging my head against the wall, if you will, in terms of the totality of what they were doing. I think a lot of times our intelligence and our policy in terms of gathering intelligence is reactionary and not proactive. And the Chinese and other kind of nefarious intelligence services are very much proactive, and our policy has really been reactive. And I think we need to look at changing that. And
thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.